happens when corporations take control of government? The first thing and the only thing they do is plunder. That is their whole objective. And, we saw this during the fascist years in Europe. And when those leaders and Franco took power, the first thing they did is put industrialists in charge of the ministries. Hitler was a right-wing, Christian fundamentalist fascist who was absolutely, and his group was absolutely off the political radar screen. People considered them nuts and completely incapable of ever taking power. But they made these unholy alliances with industry money that started pouring money into their movements and gave them a political foothold. And when that took purchase and they got political power, they paid back industry by putting the industrialists in charge of all of the ministries. And what did they do? They enriched themselves by mounting small wars, taking no-bid contracts, and privatizing the commons. And this particular government is the government that we have here in this country today, is a government of plunder.
In case you needed any more proof that Donald Trump's cabinet full of oligarchs is hell-bent on using their positions of power to destroy the lives of regular people, pay attention to the 2005 version of RFK Jr., our new HHS secretary.
This is a government that represents itself as a government of values, but all of the values that they claim to embrace are just hollow facades that conceal the one value that they really consider worth fighting for, which is corporate profit-taking. They say that they're conservatives, but they have torn the conserve out of conservatism. They say that they like the free market, but they despise free markets. What they really fight for is corporate welfare, capitalism for the poor, but socialism for the rich. They say that they like property rights, but it's only when it's the right of a polluter to use his property to destroy his neighbor's property and to destroy the public property. They say that they like law and order, but that the first ones to let the corporate lawbreakers off the hook. They say that they like local control and states' rights, but they only like those things when it means sweeping away the barriers or the obstacles to corporate profit-taking at the local level.
So yeah, we've been on this trajectory for decades, where corporate money controls our politicians, who prioritize their singular goal of collecting and hoarding as much money as possible. What Trump's MAGA movement has done is take our already corporatist-controlled government and used it to advance his thirst for dictatorial power, the same way that the younger RFK Jr. detailed. So listen to that part again.
And, we saw this during the fascist years in Europe. And when those leaders and Franco took power, the first thing they did is put industrialists in charge of the ministries. Hitler was a right-wing, Christian fundamentalist fascist who was absolutely, and his group was absolutely off the political radar screen. People considered them nuts and completely incapable of ever taking power. But they made these unholy alliances with industry money that started pouring money into their movements and gave them a political foothold. And when that took purchase and they got political power, they paid back industry by putting the industrialists in charge of all of the ministries. And what did they do? They enriched themselves by mounting small wars, taking no-bid contracts, and privatizing the commons.
You can't deny that's what we're experiencing. So now fast forward to today, where Donald Trump, a clear authoritarian leader who despises any opposition to his desires, has sought out radical loyalists to suppress anyone against him while appointing rich people that funded and supported his rise to power to cabinet positions. They agreed to help advance his political dreams in exchange for more wealth and control. Remember, RFK Jr. was once a Donald Trump opponent. That is, until he agreed to join to help him get elected in that leaked phone call where Trump tried to appeal to his disproven beliefs about vaccines.
I agree with you, man. Something's wrong with that whole system. And, and it's the doctors you find. Remember I said I want to do small doses. Small doses. When you feed a baby, Bobby, a vaccination that has like 38 different vaccines, and it looks like it's meant for a horse, not a 10-pound or 20-pound baby. It looks like you should be giving a horse this. And do you ever see the size of it, right? It's this massive. And then you see the baby all of a sudden starting to change radically. I've seen it too many times. And then you hear that it doesn't have an impact, right? But you and I talked about that a long time ago.
Yeah, he's a really bad salesman. But Kennedy didn't care as long as he gave him power and control over HHS, where Trump's exclusionary policies are normalized.
Mr. President, here are excerpts from a letter I received today from a constituent. Quote, "Good afternoon, Senator Ossoff. I write to you today with a heavy heart and a profound sense of concern. After decades of dedicated service to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, working under both Republican and Democratic administrations to improve vaccine uptake, advance health equity, and fight the disparities that have long plagued underserved communities, I now find myself facing an alarming and deeply troubling situation." My constituent continues, quote, "This morning I was placed on the DEI Watchlist website and publicly identified as a target. Compounding this distressing reality, my personal and internal CDC-related information has been exposed on a public website, placing me in immediate danger. I have since received unexpected deliveries to my home, and my personal information is now in the hands of individuals aligned with the views of the current administration, individuals whose intentions I cannot discern, but whose actions are already proving to be invasive and threatening." The letter goes on, quote, "I'm left with no choice but to remain vigilant, prayerful, and confined to my own home, effectively a prisoner for doing my duty as a public health professional."
A DEI watch list for a career public health official that has led to threats due to her being doxxed. And Kennedy is comfortable with these kinds of results in exchange for his need to throw science out the window for theories that he knows are indefensible when they're scrutinized.
Mr. Kennedy, you have compared the CDC's work to Nazi death camps. You've compared it to sexual abusers in the Catholic Church. You've also said that many of them belong, this is a direct quote, "many of them belong in jail." I need to know, do you stand by those statements that you made in the past, or do you retract those previous statements?
Senator, I don't believe that I ever compared the CDC to Nazi death camps. I support the CDC. My job is not to dismantle or harm the CDC. My job is to empower the scientists if I'm privileged to be confirmed.
So you retract those statements?
I'm not retracting it. I never said it.
Well, actually, I have a transcript
Of me saying that it's a Nazi death camp?
Let me read your words. It says that the institution, CDC, and the vaccine program, is your description of their work, is more important than the children that it's supposed to protect. And you know, it's the same reason we had a pedophile scandal in the Catholic Church. It's because people were able to convince themselves that the institution of the church was more important than these little boys and girls who were being raped. That's pretty provocative language. You said in another statement to me, this is like Nazi death camp. I mean, let me finish. I'm just reading your words. I mean, what happened to these kids? 1 in 31 boys in this country, their minds are being robbed from them.
Yeah, I was not comparing the CDC to Nazi death camps. I was comparing the injury rate to our children to other atrocities.
You know, atrocities like Nazi death camps. No, but still, he was confirmed by politicians that have been bought by oligarchs who found value in this authoritarian president.
There have been, as I understand it, dozens of studies done all over the world that make it very clear that vaccines do not cause autism. Now, you just said, if I heard correctly, well, if the evidence is there. The evidence is there. That's it. Vaccines do not cause autism. Do you agree with that?
As I said, I'm not going to go into HHS with any preordained.
I asked you a simple question, Bobby. The studies all over the world say it does not. What do you think?
Senator, if you show me those studies, I will absolutely, as I promised to Chairman Cassidy, I will apologize.
That is a very troubling response because the studies are there. Your job was to have looked at those studies as an applicant for this job.
So as our new HHS secretary takes the reins over the health of the country, he doesn't see any guardrails to stop him from going down the same path as Elon Musk. So widespread firing before taking the time to assess what's working and what's not working.
We're going to change the personnel at the agencies. We're gonna fire on day one, or if you can't fire them, we can ship them to a new HHS headquarters in Guam. every nutritional scientist at FDA, because all of them are corrupt. And all of them are complicit in the poisoning of our children.
If his ideas and conclusions line up with peer-reviewed scientific studies, which he showed they rarely do, he should be able to implement the healthy standards that he claims to want in a way that doesn't put the country at risk. But without it, the results could be as bad as we experienced just 5 years ago under Trump, where his refusal to acknowledge reality led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. I mean, Elon Musk's mass firings at the National Nuclear Security Administration without a second thought, it's already put us at risk to degrees that even his unearned ego couldn't deny. They've given us no reason to trust their judgment.
Federal employees who are in charge of nuclear weapons got the pink slip last week. It's all part of the Trump administration's massive wave of layoffs. I'm talking about workers at the National Nuclear Security Administration. We should note, though, some of those workers are now being asked to come back to work. So here's some of what the administration is tasked with doing. They maintain the U.S. nuclear weapons stockpile. They reduce global danger from weapons of mass destruction. And they also work hand in hand with the U.S. Navy. And they respond to nuclear emergencies in the United States and abroad.
The primary mission of the NNSA is to maintain our nuclear weapons. But this has actually gotten more complicated in recent years with an effort to modernize them, which is a huge task, to say the least. But perhaps less well known is the international engagement that they do to prevent nuclear terrorism, to also stop new countries from getting nuclear weapons. There's approximately 200, federal employees that have these duties, working in essentially every country in the globe to eliminate weapons-usable nuclear material, to secure the material that remains, and also to protect that highly radioactive sources that could be used in a dirty bomb, again, located in pretty much every country around the globe.